let me do the quick introductions. So Patrick Hawthorne, Medadvisor Solutions, is the SVP of Pharmacy Network Development. Patrick is a registered pharmacist with over 30 years experience in pharmacy adherence and innovation. He is passionate about patient care and improving healthcare outcomes for patients and bringing solutions to large stakeholder groups to expand solutions for the patient. He enjoys working with diverse leaders across the healthcare industry to explore what is possible and help bring it forward with the guiding objective of providing the patient experience and driving better health outcomes. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you.
Lyndi Hirsch is the VP of Marketing for GoodRx. Lyndi Hirsch is a data-driven marketing executive with over 20 years of experience commercializing specialty and orphan disease therapies in the highly regulated and hyper-competitive US market. Her commitment to patient empowerment and reducing the stigma of chronic disease has enabled her to build strong relationships and enduring communities across a wide range of disease areas. She is currently VP of Marketing at GoodRx, where she oversees B2B marketing strategy and operations for GoodRx's fast-growing pharmacy-facing business. She previously served as SVP Marketing Strategy at Medadvisor and Head of Marketing and Communications at Hirsch. Before working at leading healthcare and tech media organizations, Hirsch had a series of strategic HCP and consumer marketing positions in pharmaceuticals. Her client-side pharma experience includes Dermira, MAP Pharmaceuticals, Human Genome Sciences, now GSK, Genentech, Serono, and Biogen. Hirsch serves on the advisory board for Digital Pharma East and the boards of directors for the Point of Care Marketing Association and National Association for Continence. She is a business advisor to Race to Erase MS, an organization dedicated to the treatment and ultimate cure of MS. She holds a BA in communications from the University of North Colorado and speaks frequently about healthcare marketing. Welcome, Lyndi.
Thank you.
And finally, last but not least, our moderator for the panel.
Who's still very short one.
The shortest bio I've had today. Mark BardThe is a new media marketing and technology entrepreneur. In addition to personal ventures, he invests in technology and health startups, taking an active advisory role with founders. Mark's focus and passion includes digital data analytics, customer service in a connected world. Mark co-founded the Digital Health Coalition Group in 2020. Mark co-founded the Digital Coalition, a nonprofit think tank, in 2011. Mark previously sold Manhattan Research to Providence Equity Partners. Mark BardThe.
Okay. We're gonna cram a lot into a short amount of time. And a little bit of background. Ray had reached out last year, and they were doing the forum on digital health, and we talked about things like telehealth. And it's always fun because when we started the Digital Health Coalition, a lot of the pharma companies were confused. They're like, why is it not just digital pharma? And my interest, like everyone we're going to talk about here, is trying to understand all these interconnected parts, right? How do all the things around EMR and all the changes we see happening out there, how does pharma participate? What can you influence and what are you a part of? And there's some things like EMR, we kind of learn like, hey, you're along for the ride for a lot of this, and hopefully you get access to some of the data. Maybe you can kind of insert yourself into that process as well. And when they mentioned pharmacy, I said, hey, that's amazing, because we just did a project, actually with some of these folks right up here, on pharmacy innovation. This came out of some projects we were doing on access adherence. And what we heard from a lot of pharma was a number of companies saying, we see pharmacy as an untapped opportunity. And it was either we got access to hard to reach populations, we did some really cool stuff. Obviously there's a great case studies in vaccines. There's a lot you can do to really close the entire loop. And so I looked at this, I said, oh, what a great mix. We've got Patrick, and you heard his background, you've heard Lyndi's background. I look at it, the very short version is, she knows technology, she knows publishers, she knows the business, and we're gonna talk about GoodRx. Everyone in this room, I assume, knows GoodRx. And then Patrick, you've got a ton of experience in Walgreens, one of the big ones, right? That we all have interactions with, and we know how that process is working. I'm gonna quickly go through the clicker. I'm gonna use a very old term. Where is it up here, right?
You just have to use the push button.
Oh, yeah. There we go. I'm going to quickly go through this because I promised only about 4 to 5 minutes, and then I want to get to the conversation with them. We did, as part of this project, we went out and talked to pharmacists. You have access to these slides. The conference will send them to you. To start off with, why are we talking about pharmacists? We got Alejandro from Mars M3 here. Great to be working with him as part of the DHC. We put this in as part of the study. Look, pharmacists basically rate as high as physicians and nurses, right? We trust them. We go to them. So we've got a great starting point when we think, is this relevant from a consumer perspective? Our pharmacists online, I remember way back in the day, right? Some of those 20 years ago, you started to convince people that doctors use technology. We're kind of still having some of those conversations around pharmacies, right? Pharmacists are online, almost 90%, right? 90% have some form of digital interaction with their patients, right? So we're not trying to convince them that these tools make sense. They've got a communication angle. If you're like me, I'm I use Walgreens app all the time. What do I mostly get? I get a lot of SMS. Maybe get some emails. We go further down. We get down to things like QR codes. They're great for, hey, you want to learn about shingles vaccine? Boom, scan this, pull it up on your mobile phone. All the way down to not quite as many, about 21%. Chatbots, AI, all that fun stuff we love to talk about as well, right? We're not quite there for the majority of pharmacies, but some playing around with it. What else do we know? 91% are using portals. They're like every other business out there today, they got to get access to information. Most of them out there, what are they doing on it? It's what we would expect. Safety, dosing, education, adherence. We're going to pop into this one a little bit more, right? That's what we care about if we're consumers. You show up at Walgreens, at CVS, wherever it is, and you're like, what? How was Ozempic $1,500? I saw a commercial for $49, $50, whatever it was. How do we close that gap with better education? And Lyndi's obviously going to help us better understand that. Pharmacists, from your point of view, how significant is cost to the patient? 43%, very significant. 36, significant. It's almost 80%. It's hard to find a pharmacist saying that cost is not a major issue for the patients coming into the pharmacy setting. We got to do better. We got to make sure we get them the right information at the point of pharmacy. 98% in any capacity of researching price and copay information. Almost half the biggest single subsegment, somewhat often, 1 in 4 pharmacists searching price information very often. And it's not a very easy process. It's not fully integrated into how they're doing it. We can still do a lot better. What's the role for pharma? And I'm going to close with a couple thoughts on this as well. 54% using patient education from pharma in the pharmacy now, but we got a lot of untapped potential still. 39% saying, yeah, I'd love some if you can give it to me. There's only 7% that say, no, I don't want patient education from pharma. What do we see on the pro side? 2/3, I get it, I use it. About 1/3, I'm not getting it, but I would like to. And again, it's very hard to find a pharmacist saying, no, I don't want your professional education. These last two are kind of my favorite ones. Part of the project, we did some qualitative insights. Pharmacist, if you could redesign the patient experience for the pharmacy setting, what would you do? I'm just pulling kind of the common themes out of here. Hey, great, give me a kiosk. So before they show up at the counter, the glass, whatever, they can actually ask me intelligent questions. Give me a little patient education prior. What else do we see? The cost. Obviously the big one is give them real-time benefit information so they know what they're going to be paying when they show up, and it's not a surprise the first time I bring it up on the screen. Better communication throughout the system, and what's the big one? Obviously PA. Can we just eliminate this? No, we can't. We've been trying for decades and decades and decades, but we need to do better. And I love this one. This is a very common theme too. The technology already exists, right? We have the technology to do the education, the payment, submit your questions ahead of time. We're just not really investing in taking advantage of the platforms as we could. So the person's not showing up saying, what? How could this cost this much, right? What do we always say? I have insurance. Why is this costing this much, right? So we got to do better. Now, what do you care about in the room? What does this matter for pharma? So some of the biggest ones here, give me better access to your copay and patient support programs from my point of view, pharmacist. Bigger ones up here. They feel like the lost segment, right? Most pharmacists saying, it's like pharma doesn't even care about us anymore, right? We're kind of an afterthought. If they got a little extra budget or they're doing some extra marketing dollars, maybe, but we just don't seem to matter to them. They should put all their money when it comes to pharmacies into fixing PA. What else? On-demand professional education. This one was very big, and the most common response was the GLPs, right? I got someone coming in and I'm trying to give them a little bit of background. What do they send them to? Send them to YouTube, right? Hey, just Google this injection, you'll get some good information, or maybe go to thebrain.com. Make it easier for me to contact you with medical questions. And another big one, this came up in the previous session, I think a little bit as well, this idea of what's the big one for non-English content? Hispanic, right? Spanish content that you could offer as part of a pharmacy education. So with that, I'm going to leave that on, and you've got the bios. I was going to set you up a little bit, but he went through everything, so I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm going to start with a targeted question for Lyndi, and we're going to jump into this idea of kind of GoodRx specifically. So GoodRx is a household name, and it's been fascinating watching it over the past, several years, and probably even before that. I look at it as the average consumer saying, oh, this site helps me save money when I show up at the pharmacy. A very simplistic way. I can look and I'll put it in, and it gives me a couple different options. Help me understand the user experience, and also maybe a little bit through the brand person's point of view. When are they showing up at GoodRx? Is it 2 days before, so Walgreens? Is it 1 day before? Or am I literally trying to Google it as I'm sitting there waiting in line?
Yeah.
What is the GoodRx experience today?
So it could be everything and anything, right? So there's no typical experience for anyone. Everybody's unique at the point in time in which decisions are being made. GoodRx is there. Whether it's at the point of diagnosis and talking about treatment in the physician's office, whether it's at the pharmacy and you're shocked about price and the pharmacist might be helping you. But I have 3 important points that I want to share around this. And first is that there isn't a typical user experience. So being where people are when they're there is incredibly important. Second, GoodRx is there when these decisions are happening, when the conversations are happening with physician, with HCP, with pharmacists at home. These conversations are happening, the research is happening, GoodRx is being used to make these decisions and move forward with filling and refilling scripts. And third is that the GoodRx audience has changed over the years that we have been here. But so I'm great fortunate being here since December. As you heard, I've spent a lot of my time in pharma. And I think that as we have all learned about GoodRx, what we believe about it could be very different than what it actually is. It's no longer just the uninsured, underinsured, and looking for generics. We have people who are coming to GoodRx who are very different than the older, underinsured or uninsured population that we used to be. So today, 80% of our users, our visitors, are insured. 35% of those people have over $100,000 in their salary, right, what they make per year in their household income. And that's very important considering that they're making decisions that aren't strictly just based on, I'm insured and therefore I use my insurance, right? I'm insured, but I need to find what's most affordable. So the population who comes to GoodRx very much closely mirrors the healthcare population in the United States today. And as we continue to grow, we believe that our visitors will continue to mirror that population as it has over time. Our visitors are high intent, highly qualified people who are visiting, who are action oriented. They're looking to make a decision and move forward. Those visitors are at diagnosis or just following diagnosis and moving forward, but they are focused on cost. They're focused on affordability, and they're focused on where they are going to manage their healthcare in the best possible way.
Excellent. Let me just real quick to go on that. I'm there, I'm looking for Manjaro. Do you send me to Walgreens or do you send me to Manjaro.com?
Well,
or both?
It could be both. It could be both. It really depends. It could be both. And it also depends, I think, you know, if you're looking for, say, local pharmacy and you're looking for that information, you can find that information and go and see what the price is that is local to you. You can also find information, particularly from Manjaro, that's specific to content around learning about Manjaro and be able to follow that information and get to Manjaro.com.
Absolutely. Excellent, excellent. Patrick, you're obviously the resident pharmacy in the pharmacy setting, trying to better understand, a ton of experience again on the Walgreens side. What we often heard from the pharma brain, as I'm kind of pulling up some of my notes from this project we did previously, was we want to try a lot of exploring innovative products. This is pharma talking, but the pharmacies don't seem willing to experiment, or their pricing models just make no sense. So they come at us with these insane fixed costs to try a pilot project. So we're just never going to try these innovative extensions and how we can try and attempt to do things. So how do you respond? Where is innovation happening today? And do you tend to break the world into, retail, specialty, independent, because those are just such different worlds?
Yeah. So if you're dealing with one pharmacy group, you're dealing with one pharmacy group. They're all different. I think when you look at it from the context of pharma, I think they do try a lot of things and innovate, with a goal of trying to get patients introduced to therapy or stay on therapy, which if we're diagnosing the patient right and introducing the right therapy, that's great for outcomes, great for the patient, for healthcare, for the pharmacy, for everybody. I think with that, the tactic to reach out to the patient, you've got to have the right patient at the right point in journey care, with the right message that's relevant to them. And I think most importantly for most of us, it's how we want to be communicated to. So for me, work-wise, I'm a text and email person. If your teams chat me, I'm going to be less effective. And I think the patient in the healthcare journey is the same way. They have their preferences, and I think they're becoming more and more important. I think, equally as important to that is you've got to yield an action for the patient with the tagging. So I think we have to keep all that in mind as we're trying to engage patients. I think on the innovation front, I don't think it's so much about the types of pharmacies. You have some that are early adopters and some you have to drag along the way on the innovation. I think the key areas that we're seeing, I think I'll say 2 points. AI being used on the back end more so, being used for documentation. And then I think with that predictive modeling, machine learning, I think that's going to grow and expand. So better understanding, to my last point, of how to engage the patient and what is the reaction. We have all the data.
For adherence, just what's a use case for what you just said?
Being able to look back 5 years of how they behaved to the 168 million messages we sent.
Okay.
What did they do? What did they respond to? What got the refill, which is what pharma wants, the pharmacy wants, and what we want from a healthcare outcome perspective. So I think there's a lot more we can do there. And then I think digital. I've seen a stat that's very dated that says 80% of us prefer to interact with our healthcare providers digitally. It's what we're trying to do. We're glued to these phones, but we don't want to talk to you on the phone. No, we want to be able to do everything through an app, schedule appointment, all of that. And that number is dated. I imagine it's more up over 90% now.
Yeah, I still get phone calls, and I keep telling them, "Can you stop calling me?" You have one here. So I'm going to stick with you, Patrick, for a second on this one. I want to tie it back to the conversation for this track for the day. All these great macro digital health trends, and the one that kind of is relevant over the past couple of years. A little bit tactical, but pharmacists could prescribe, right? During the pandemic, we had Paxlovid, we had other things that became very frontline in terms of part of the healthcare system with vaccines, obviously. So when you think about kind of what becomes the norm of digital health, which becomes digital first, we kind of had a massive spike in remote and telehealth, and it kind of started to level out. We're trying to figure out where it fits. Where's the pharmacy fit into that? Do I potentially go to a pharmacy and they've got to deal with a telehealth provider? Or are there nurses, and I'm sure, I can imagine you sitting in a Walgreens meeting years ago and they're saying, what does pharmacy 2030 look like, or 2040? What's unique about that kind of pharmacy's role in that digital future? Or is it going to look really the same, just more digital first?
I think it's going to look rapidly different. It's got to change. I don't think in the States, I don't think we're far enough along on digital health. There's other countries where you can virtually see a pharmacist and they can diagnose and treat on a much broader scope of practice. I think we've got to advance to that, but we're not there yet. But I think the changes, you mentioned the COVID vaccines. I was surprised to read the other day, and it probably should have surprised me, that pharmacists have delivered 80% of all COVID vaccines since the inception of the vaccine being available. So that did surprise me a little bit, but I thought it was interesting. But I think, the digital expansion partially sped up because of the pandemic. I think it's added convenience, and that's done two things. It's made it easier for us to access care in a more convenient manner. So being able to interact with a chat or order a prescription or even a virtual medication advisor avatar. But the other piece to this is the top 2 reasons why you have a prescription miss still behind the counter are fatigue and distraction. So all of these digital solutions take away distraction from that pharmacist, allowing them to focus on the prescription filling process, decrease errors, and then eventually work on more expanded scope of practice, preferably through digital.
Perfect. So Lyndi, I'm going to let you build on that. I'll throw you a little bit of a curveball. Just when you think, you're like, I love that. If you think pharmacy of the future, and what we always hear when pharmacy comes up now, from the pharma side of the companies we talk to, it's Lilly Direct, Hims, Hers, everything in between. It's like, what is this DTC model? Not just entering Lilly Direct, but from that experience of really it's concierge medicine in some ways of give me your information and I'm going to run with it. Where's the pharmacy fit into that model? And also the same way, I may end up on a GoodRx from a Google search for the product, and I'm starting to get some information. It gives me a list of the pharmacies. What are your thoughts on kind of where you see that pharmacy fitting in that future?
Hey, look, everything within pharmacy is changing. In healthcare, however, we don't move as quickly as other industries. Look, in the financial industry, we can pay our bills from our couch, right? We can change our 401k sitting on our phone. I mean, all of that has really moved quickly and adapted very quickly. In healthcare, there are reasons why. There's regulations. There are reasons that slow us down a little bit, but we can be better. And what Patrick was just talking about with the innovations through the time of the pandemic, it was based out of need. Right, it was absolutely necessary. And I think, what people are looking for, the ease and the simplicity of being able to have information at their fingertips. And, in all the work that I've done in understanding what consumers are looking for, I keep coming back to a phrase that has resonated for a pretty long time, and that is, how do I manage my healthcare around the kitchen table, right? And we're doing that now. We're managing so much around the kitchen table with telehealth, with being able to enter the secure portals. All of that's happening from the home. And we're bringing that to you, and it was out of really necessity that we got over those humps. I think because of the privacy and regulations, we still take a little bit of time. But 10 years ago, we weren't doing what we're doing in pharmacy today. We didn't have the in-pharmacy clinics. Look at the work that pharmacies are taking from primary care and from urgent care and from vaccinations. I think that that's an important factor here, and that's a move towards saying we can be adaptable in pharmacy. The patients, consumers need us to be adaptable in pharmacy, and how do we get there? Well, we saw in your data, right? So 89% of pharmacists are using digital. From the GoodRx perspective, most of those are coming to us and understanding the affordability point for patients at that point. And we're getting there, and it's taking some leaps. And I think about Willie Direct, I think about Mark Cuban, I think about the need for all of this to happen in the industry so that we raise the bar on access, so that we make access to healthcare more affordable and easier, and that we use our technology in a very controlled manner to be able to bring that forward to consumers. They're asking for it, they want it, they responded to it, people have accepted what they can do at home from a healthcare perspective. It doesn't take away from HCPs and offices, but it does change the ability that we have quick and direct access. And what do we know about getting people on their treatments and their therapies? The faster we do it, the better. We know we'll get it done. Any delays, any prior auths, the things that slow us down, the things that make people second guess becomes an issue.
Excellent. So we're going to close out with some thoughts on pharma here in our last couple minutes. I'm going to stick with you, and then we'll give Patrick final thoughts. And when pharma looks at this, obviously new fills are all I really care about in most cases. There's some call to action, there's some conversion factor. Great, show me some data on adherence where you're impacting things I may not have done otherwise. What do you see as the touch points? You've been on all sides, you've been across between, pharma, publisher, tech, now at GoodRx. What's the pitch? Like, what's the hook when you look of where you're missing kind of that pharmacy connection? And what are the metrics you see other than just, you can show me that you're driving patients, to a fill?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and it's a layered question. Depending on the type of brand, depending on the type of treatment, depending on whether it's specialty, whether it's generic, there's so many different layers to this and how we can bring forward the right access to care. And there are a couple of things that are important. Pharmacy has moved far past, we all know this, the shelf doctors, right? We're not just communicating in that realm. We have to be able to ensure credibility and the accuracy of data. We have to make sure that our HCPs continue to have that information in office that also speaks in the language that they communicate to their patients, so that it all comes together. All too often, and early in my years, certainly we had messages for doctors and nurses, we had messages for patients, and there was such a battle in between that. And the importance of bringing that together and making sure that's pulled through to the pharmacy, because those conversations are happening at pharmacy, and in certain areas we know in certain populations the pharmacist takes the place of that doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that there's accurate and accessible and timely information is incredibly important. For marketers, we need to fish where there are fish, right? We need to go where people are. I launched a campaign a couple of years ago that was specifically to millennials, the company that was commercializing for the first time. Millennials aren't unhealthy. They're not going to our normal sites for healthcare information, so where are they? Our highest performing program was through Snapchat. It was extraordinary. I've never seen anything like it. It was hard to believe, but it was true. Highest qualified audience, highest actionable audience. We have to go where people are and adjust to how to speak with them. I think from a measurement perspective is, from a marketing side, we have focused so highly on feeding the top of the funnel. Push people in. We do it with awareness. It's important, especially if we're building a market and we're helping people learn about a disease in particular. But with digital, from the pharmacy to the doctor's office to home, immediately by people's actions, by consumers' actions, we know what they're doing and we know if they're qualified. So we should really be focusing into that center to bottom part of that funnel towards the conversion, not waste. really focus on learning from where people are seeking action for information, that we do this at GoodRx to be able to understand where people are going next, right? We work with other partners in this industry to understand what actions people take after we touch them. Let's decrease the number of touch points and get them to conversion faster. And let's get them there and keep them there and make sure that at the point in which they're seeking that information, it's there. We're supporting them at the doctor's office, we're supporting them at the pharmacy, and we're putting it in their fingertips. So this is really the digital healthcare communication that we need to have continued within the industry.
Nice, that was a great holistic view. I love that. Reduce the friction points, reduce those pain points. Patrick, we're gonna let you close it out. When you look at it, I think I used this term with you before, kind of the connective tissue, the connective glue in many ways, Medadvisors, with what you do. How do you think about it when pharma kind of looks and says, it's an interesting opportunity? Let's assume they just want data as the first step, or be able to access some of the data that you have access to. Why is this so critical for pharma to get a better understanding within the pharmacy setting, and kind of when you look at it from their metrics point of view? Do you think they're looking at the right metrics, or are there other things we need to kind of open our mind to?
I think they're looking at the right metrics. I think the data is abundant. I think we've got to make sure it's flowing and that we're sharing it and leveraging it together to put forward solutions for the patient. I think there's a lot more we can do. I think when you look at wearables, it's not seamless that it's integrated into your patient journey at your pharmacy and also at your doctor's office, and it should be. We're advancing it, but it's not there. You look at the healthcare app industry, was at 3.4 billion in revenue, up 10% last year on 379 million downloads. I use a wearable, very simple one. I use a healthcare app every day that my pharmacy nor my clinician has asked me, hey, let's integrate that seamlessly. And I think it's all of that data that I think we should all be collectively working on to really improve the outcomes and advance the industry and the profession to really make it as seamless as it can be.
Yeah, nice. Well, we went over a little bit, but at 5 minutes over, Ray, I think we turn it back over to you for the break, which is now.
Yes, so that concludes obviously our day.
I'd like to thank the panelists here.